Good evening, everyone. Today is April Fool's Day, but what I'm going to share with you is not a joke. You may think it is during the course of our discussion, but I assure you it is not a joke. So, thank you very much for joining. My name is Alina Shevtsova. I'm an immigration attorney from New York. Today, we will be discussing interesting new information as to what government used as a criteria to determine who out of Venezuelans that they captured is going to be deported to El Salvador maximum security prison. And I'm going to share with you information as to what happened really. Because these documents, this information was newly revealed in courts because of the litigation. It wasn't revealed by the government just because we wanted to know the truth. It was revealed because of the litigation. Very, very important. So it means it's reliable. Nobody invented it. And of course, afterwards, you guys are welcome to ask your questions. Please let me know where you're watching from. Type up your questions in our chat, and I will be very happy to help you out and answer your questions. And of course, if you would like to discuss anything else, you're welcome to comment, and I will do my best to address your concerns. So, you may be aware that for the first time in the history, well, at least known history to me, of practice of immigration law, the United States deported certain undocumented residents not to their home countries or countries that were countries of their usual habitual residence prior to their arrival to the United States, but to a third country that agreed to take those people just because whatever arrangement was made between the two governments. I'm talking about, of course, the situation with people from Venezuela and El Salvador. As you know, or you've heard, this one was discussed, this news was discussed widely and is still being discussed. Why? Because it's distressing, it's concerning, right? People were arrested and people were moved, I believe, first to Guantanamo and then Panama. Some of the people were moved and then eventually they were moved to El Salvador. Maybe not all of them, but at least that's what I gathered from various news sources. And we kind of didn't know why. Some people were removed to El Salvador, some people were not. And now we sort of know why. Because people who were removed understandably hired lawyers because they also couldn't understand why they were removed. Government was arguing at first that some of these people were members of the dangerous gangs. And of course, that's understandable. Nobody wants members of dangerous gangs to be walking the streets. I'm sure you wouldn't want to. But what happened was that soon it became apparent that not everybody who was removed to maximum security prison were only the most dangerous people of El Salvador were kept. Not everyone was actual gang member. But what happened? How does this happen that some people who were not as dangerous criminals were nevertheless determined to be appropriate for this very drastic, very serious measure? So there was a court litigation, and the other side, meaning the government, disclosed the criteria that they were using to grab somebody and send them to that very scary prison. And guess what the criteria was? Well, apparently the government received sort of like a scorecard that they were using, a point card, very similar to when you perhaps facing some traffic violation. And if a person who was screened would accumulate certain amount of points, they would be determined to be appropriate for this drastic measure for the removal. All right, but how this process was working? Who was appropriate for this measure? Because you all agree with me that it's very, very scary, right? You also pictures from that maximum security prison. It looks terrifying. Well, apparently, and here is not the joke part, the government was using, among other markers, tattoos and social media posts. Tattoos and social media posts were sufficient reasons for deportation to a third country when people were separated from their families, from their loved ones, and they would be kept in those very drastic conditions. And again, some people, perhaps most of them, who were in this Salvadorian rather prison, they probably were found guilty by the local courts as this very dangerous criminals. But some people in the United States who were arrested, arrested, and shipped to El Salvador were not that. It's just that they had certain tattoos and they had social media posts, which were screened by ICE and determined to be inappropriate to the point that that person deserved that very serious, very cruel punishment. Now, of course, this whole practice is subject to litigation. We're going to see what the federal judge is going to rule eventually. I have a feeling that the judges are not going to agree with the government here, that a social media post may be sufficient reason for a person to be labeled as somebody who supports terrorism. But that's just my feeling. We're going to see what the judges are going to determine. And in the meantime, of course, there is some other news that you may have heard that there was a Maryland man, right? A guy from Maryland. He is a native of El Salvador, but according to this news article, in 2019, he received protection from an immigration judge not to be sent to El Salvador. But during the course of this removal operation, he was grabbed, arrested, detained, arrested, and also shipped to El Salvador. And the federal judge is not happy about that the order was not, followed. And currently, this gentleman is suing the government, of course, because of this horrible violation of his rights. And I can only imagine what the outcome is going to be, because it seems that he will be entitled to hefty compensation because the government already admitted that they made a mistake. All right. And if you're watching me for a while, you may recall my videos where I stated that at the beginning of the new administration coming to power and announcing mass deportations and drastic actions, there will be people who are going to get hurt, whose rights are going to be violated. With time, if the people hire attorneys and they have enough life force in them to fight for their rights, they will prevail. But it takes time to prevail. And that's exactly what's happening. We've been into this administration for about January, February, March, 2.5 months, and we already hear stories that people are unjustly subjected to some very cruel punishments and very cruel conditions. Do I expect it to improve? Not in its entirety, because every time there is a court ruling that stops one trend, a new trend is starting. And I think that's going to be the practice for at least a while with this administration. Again, some people that are being deported, they're being deported because they lost all the courts and they have heavy criminal convictions and they don't really have any defenses to deportation. Other people are being deported, as we see, by mistakes. And of course, there is a third category of people who are deported because this administration refuses to exercise positive discretion, which they could have exercised. And the previous administration did exercise it, but this one doesn't want to do that. And it's very tough cases, heartbreaking situations. You probably hear about them every single day, right? So this is where we're at. I do not believe that it's going to improve. Well, the good news, however, there is always some good news, is that USCIS seems to have picked up processing of the cases. And at least work permits based on marriages are being approved very fast, literally less than a month. And I hope it's going to continue. And this is, of course, very good news for those of you who are relying on that work permit to keep their job, and for those of you who have this strong marriage based cases. We're going to see if this administration is also going to follow the steps of the previous ones and will start waiving the interviews. That would be great, at least for some applicants, all right, to conserve the resources. So we're going to see what's going to happen. But for now, this is the update I wanted to share with you. And if you guys have immigration questions related to the United States immigration law, I'll be very happy to answer them. Thank you guys very much for those of you who are watching me on TikTok this late night, Tuesday night. And those of you who are, thank you for those of you who are watching me on YouTube and Facebook. Let's see. Hi, KT. Should I contact you about J1 hardship waiver? Hi, KT. Of course, you guys can contact my office with whatever issues related to the United States immigration laws you may have. We handle all kind of cases. You will need to book an appointment to discuss your case, but you can call my office, 917-885-2261. Please, they will make sure, my secretaries, that they will find time for you. I have in-person appointments and I have virtual appointments, whatever is best for you. Hi, Veronica. Any T visa applicants getting detained or deported, or ICE still are not focusing on victims of crimes? I daily check lawyers' forums where lawyers, immigration lawyers, are exchanging experiences as to who is getting detained, who is getting deported. And to date, I have not heard of any TU visa of our applicant who would be detained. So I think overall it's a good sign for now, all right? I don't think those people are a focus group, right? So that's a good thing. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Hi, Mr. Khan. Thank you very much. Hi, Adam. Please, how to get travel history? Well, Adam, it actually depends what status you have. If you are not a US citizen and you are not a lawful permanent resident, meaning a green card holder, you can retrieve your travel history by using government website. You just Google I-94, retrieval of I-94, and then you will see two options. Do you want just the latest I-94 card, or you want the entire travel history? For some of you, travel history is not going to be available because travel history is available only for relatively recent records. I think starting maybe from 2000 something. So if you're looking for a travel history that, or you're trying to retrieve a travel history and it's not available, then you may want to file FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request, okay? And see what results you may receive from CBP, okay? So, hi, Veronica, again. I came with a visa waiver program and overstayed. Now I have a deportation order and a T visa pending too. You think I'm at big risk of deportation? Well, Veronica, you have a legitimate reason to ask for the deportation to be stayed, all right? Now, you did come on a visa waiver program. You stated that you have a deportation order. Was it an administrative order, or you were somehow placed in regular removal proceedings? I think there is a difference here because usually people who came on a visa waiver, they would not be allowed to file for any kind of relief apart from T visa, U visa, or asylum. All right. So I hope you worked with an attorney. They checked your qualifications and they determined that you may have a pathway to a green card in your situation. Adam, you're a green card holder, correct? So unfortunately, you will not be able to retrieve your travel history, and you will need to look at your reservations for your flights. Interestingly enough, when you're going to be filing for the citizenship, because I think that's why you're asking the question, when you're going to be filing for the citizenship, the government is going to have your travel history because they have reports directly from the airlines. All right. So they know very well when you bought that ticket and if you boarded that plane. It's very interesting. All right, guys from TikToks, thank you for your patience. Let's see what questions you have tonight about the United States immigration law. Hi, beekeeper. If you have a U.S. citizen stepdaughter, do you put her on 751, please? If you have a U.S. citizen stepdaughter, yeah, sure. Listen, the rule of thumb is this: list all of your family members, including the stepkids. It's better if you do that. All right. Uh, she may not need status, but you want to be as accurate as possible in your filings, just because, and it's better to list more people than necessary, just because if you forget to list somebody and later you want to sponsor them, I'm not talking about US citizenship daughter, stepdaughter, then you may face issues. So just list her. It's not a big deal. They ask for this information, what status they have, and you're going to say, yes, of course, she has a US citizenship. So obviously, she's not looking for any status. Can an I-130 F2A case be upgraded to immediate relative before USCIS approval? F2A, it means that child or spouse of a lawful permanent resident. Will it be upgraded? Sure, it can be. So as soon as you get that citizenship, well, technically USS should know about your status, but you can also reach out to them wherever the case is and say, hey, listen, I am already a citizen. Please prove the case as the immediate relative case. All right. Appeals court rules in favor of Dodge. It's about USAID. Yes, they did. So that organization, I think, unfortunately, will be terminated, the funding. Listen, they did a lot of good things around the world. Some of the things questionable, I have to say. I was not aware as to how they were spending the money. I think nobody was. Like we had no idea. But at the same time, in certain areas of the world, at certain times, they were the only hope for the people of those countries to see any light, any change, any democracy, any humanitarian help. So I'm a proponent of reformation rather than destruction. That's how I would approach various issues. I wouldn't necessarily be dismantling certain institutions. I'd be focusing on how to make them better. That's just my opinion. Okay. It's very easy to destroy something. It's very difficult to build it back. Let's see. To get cases. All right. I'm at 3. Hi, Nathaniel. I met 3 out of 10 criteria for my EB1 and USCIS. Wait, where did you go? Why did the question jumped? Oh my goodness. On TikTok, questions may jump and I will lose it forever, maybe, if there are a lot of you. Okay, here we go. And USCIS responded with a notice of intent to deny. Such a bullshit. All right. So it probably is. But remember, meeting criteria is not the only step in the process. You also have to prove that you are a person of high acclaimed, international, national acclaim in your area of expertise, and that you will be, your admission as to permanent residency will be in the national interests of the United States. Many people many people think that it's only 3 criteria. It's not. If you read the rules go deeper than that. All right. So just listen. No, it is not a denial. Prepare very well. Explain how you're useful. Okay. What is it that you're going to be doing in the United States? How you're going to be developing the United States, certain branch of the economy, and why is it that you are such a highly qualified expert in your field? All right. So if you have this 3 criteria, it's a good start, and just to work on it. Hopefully, you will be able to prevail in your EB1 case. Will two DUIs affect a U visa? Lack of good moral character? Maybe, it depends. Whether aggravated DUIs, whether they were caused by abuse or not. I think there are certain factors here, right? So DUIs by themselves, excuse me, not disqualifying factors, but if USCIS will determine that somehow they tarnish your qualifications for the U visa, they will offer you a waiver, right? Because those humanitarian visas give you an opportunity to file for very generous waivers. Should I apply visa adjustment with B2 through citizen daughter? Uh, it depends on your circumstances. Sometimes you were not planning on filing for adjustment of status. You entered the United States on B1, B2 visa, but your circumstances changed. God forbid there are health issues. God forbid there are issues, serious issues in your home country. And then you do have an opportunity to file for adjustment of status, all right? Depending on what happened. All right. All right, let's see. Best evidence to send for 10-year green card. Hi, Yara. I wouldn't say that there is any kind of best evidence for to remove conditions. It's a kid. It's a born child born in a relationship, right? So yes, that's I would say is the best evidence. If you guys fathered a kid together, that's it. But would you believe that even in cases where the right kid's born in the marriage, sometimes USA still will try to argue that you guys don't have a real marriage. I've seen cases like that. People would come to me. I wasn't the one filing for their I-751, but they would come to me and they will be like, well, usually it's guys, because guys don't care much about evidence. They don't like pick these little pieces of paper. They come to me and they say, they accuse me of not having a real marriage. I said, well, tell me about your circumstances. Do you have a child together? And the client says, I do. And I'm like, wait a second. And you're listed as the father of the child? Yes. And they still denied your case? Yes. I said, what happened? I don't understand what happened. Well, because they didn't submit joint tax returns. They didn't submit any bank statements. They didn't submit any utility bills. All right, not much photos. He's like, oh, my wife doesn't want to deal with it. I'm like, whoa, all right. Does she understand that she's going to lose the breadwinner? Because if your I-751 is denied, you will be placed into removal proceedings. So we had to refile the case, we had to win the petition, and we had to deal with the removal proceedings. It was like a whole saga. All right. Can Siege I-360 be terminated? Got green card through VAWA. Want to sponsor parents' visitors visa. You got a green card through VAWA and you filed special immigrant juvenile petition at some point. Well, listen, there are questions here. Now you want to sponsor your parents. What happened? Because when you qualify for SITch, you're basically saying that one or both of your parents abused, neglected, or abandoned you. And now they're back. Like, I have questions. USCIS is going to have questions too. I do not know what happened. All right. Maybe one parent was abusive, not the other one, and you want to sponsor the one that was nice to you. Maybe you guys reconciled. Well, how much time passed? What were the circumstances? I assure you, USCIS is going to have questions, okay, in this situation, just because of the conflicting information, right? Hi, Alex. My wife doesn't file taxes for the last 2 years. That's not good. That's not good. Do I need a tax return to apply for my green card? Yes, you will. If your spouse is sponsoring you for a green card, if they're the petitioner, the rule is they also must be your primarily sponsor, financial sponsor, even if they don't make any money. You will have to get a joint sponsor if they don't have any money. But with the Form I-864, they either have to produce a tax return or they have to explain why they didn't file taxes. Now, If she did not file taxes because she didn't have to under the law, she didn't have any income to report. Of course, there will be questions as to how she was supporting herself, but let's say she can explain that, right? Then it's okay. She still has to write an affidavit explaining that she didn't have any income to report or she was not required to file taxes under the law. But if the person simply, and sometimes there are people like that, and I'm telling you, they just don't file taxes for whatever reason. They're like, oh, I was too busy, oh, I don't want to do it. That's a big issue, and they will have to file amended tax returns. All right. So do not know what's happening in your case. Generally speaking, you guys should be filing taxes together. Now, if you married and your wife refuses to file taxes with you jointly, it's a huge issue, much bigger than the previous one. Because then you guys have to, when you're married, you have to file taxes jointly, right? All right, all right. Hi, Yara. No kids because I'm in law school. I have tax bills, landlord statements, affidavits, photos, two cats. Two cats is a good thing. Yara, if you have two cats and you can produce pictures of those two cats and you two together, that will do it. Maybe you even share parent rights. I know that now in the United States you can have a passport where you are for the cat, and the parents of the cat are going to be listed there. So you can use that too. Listen, not everybody must have kids, all right? No, absolutely. You choose, something else. It's your business, really. They are kind of curious in USCIS offices as to why certain people don't have children. They may ask you about that, but it's okay. All right, that's your choice. Hi, Serena. Can my spouse out of state start their medical or should they wait? Can my spouse out of state start their medical? Hi, Serena. Please give me more information so I can answer your question. Okay. You are welcome, Yara. Please, I have a tattoo in my lower back neck. Could it be a problem for N400? Beekeeper, it depends on the tattoo. What is there that you have? Maybe it's something personal, I do not know. Well, it may be, as it shows right now. If the tattoo is to be determined was like possible affiliation with the gangs. Okay, there are certain tattoos. I know that law enforcement agents in every country they have books like catalogs, almost like of which tattoo may be a sign that the person is a member or affiliated with a gang. So I do not know what tattoo you have, but what can I tell you? If you're, and I'm sure probably that you're not, I don't know, change it. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, that's probably something that should be saved for confidential consultation. It's, it's like you have this tattoo and they come at you and they say, based on your tattoo, we determined you're affiliated with the gang. And you're like, I'm not. So how is going to be unfolding? We're going to see. The court is going to decide this issue as to what evidentiary standard the government has to have to actually accuse you of something horrible as being affiliated with gangs. Because guys, if you are, you're done here. Like you are not qualified for any immigration benefits, right? Why? Because those gangs were determined to be terrorist organizations. It means there are no waivers available. You're done. That's it. So that's a horrible, horrible allegation. And if it's a problematic tattoo, you'll have to make some very serious decisions about it. I would say it like that, right? Some comments in this live were filtered. TikTok became so filtered after they came back. Remember the trouble with TikTok, and then they came back, and now they're not the same. MG Solo, do you think it's possible that the current TPS lawsuit might force current administration to reverse the cancellation? Not willingly. They're not going to be reversing it willingly. I don't think so, but they will fight for it, right? And I have a short video update about this situation. So a federal judge stated that, wait a second, you didn't have good reasons to stop the TPS status for people from Venezuela because you couldn't show the harm you would experience if the status would continue according to the previous designation by the Biden administration. You couldn't show the injury because most people, like 99%, I guess, of the people, right, they're good people. They're not affiliated with anything funny. So that's what the court gathered. And the court stated they're contributing members of the community, they have family ties, they not somebody who are presenting serious concern. So at least what's going to happen, I would have to say that they would allow the current designations to continue after a fight. I think so. I think the courts will. But if the government doesn't want to extend the designation, then that will be, that will be when the status terminates. All right. Hi, Caroline. I was arrested in January of 2023 for aggravated domestic battery. Hush. Would this affect my citizenship? Yes. Yes, it would. Work with a criminal defense attorney, please. And it definitely would affect because it's a deportable offense if you're found guilty. All right. But even charges reflecting on your good moral character, just keep that in mind, please. Hopefully, the charges will be dismissed. Right. No more processing of the green cards applications for asylees. Hi, Tara. That was the announcement. That was the announcement. The problem is this: when announcements like that are made, and there is no reason that voiced for this pause, there is no published criteria. My feeling is this: that for certain asylees, the processing will continue. But for some, it will not. But we, me and you, will not know how the administration is going to make the decision. You understand? So while you may hear that the processing of the green cards was stopped for people who received asylum status and people who entered as refugees, you also will hear that some asylees and refugees will be receiving green cards. And there will be questions to for whom, though, they really stopped it. People from certain countries, people from certain backgrounds. I don't know. So we're going to see what's going to happen. It also gives the government perfect opportunity to reconsider the entire process. And when you file for that green card, they would also determine whether or not the country conditions in your country support your asylum status. And if not, they would be sending, instead of green card applications approvals, they will be sending notices of intent to terminate the asylum status. Today is April 1st, 2025. Let's see if my words will become true or not. All right? Because I think that's why they did it, really, to see how they can stop the pipeline from asylum to citizenship. All right? And all they need to do is to give this one instruction to the officers. They're going to say, under the law, we don't have to maintain the status if the country conditions changed. Here are reports on every country conditions in the world. Read them and determine whether or not the country conditions still support their asylum status, refugee status. That's probably how they're going to address the issue. We'll see. All right? We'll see. Hi, Katya. Have a case pending since 2017. I can apply for citizenship. What kind of case do you have? It depends on your case, right? If you have I-751 pending, then you may be able to apply for citizenship, but it will not be approved until your I-751 is decided. Hi, Carolina was arrested. All right, yes, aggravated domestic battery. Right. Discussed that. Background, and I work in the healthcare. That's very good. Yep. Hi Serena, I filed I-130 for my spouse in Nigeria. Can we start his medical or should we wait? Oh no, 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 Serena. So if your spouse is in Nigeria and you filed I-130, so first I-130 has to be approved, then the case will be transferred to the National Visa Center. After that, you guys will have to become documentary qualified. After that, you would have to wait for the interview to be scheduled. And only once the interview is scheduled for your spouse in Nigeria, then they will go and they will have that medical exam done. Okay? Hi, David. Can I go to my home country with a conditional green card? I withdrew my pending asylum at USCIS. I wouldn't do it right now. Nope. Once you file that asylum case, no matter how much time passes, unless the country conditions change dramatically, once you filed, once you stated to the government of the United States, under no circumstances will I go back to that home country, you better have a very serious reason why you are returning back. Sometimes USCIS will understand if it's a life or death situation, you need to seek life saving treatment. Some people do. Sometimes it's, um, literally like something related to serious medical conditions when they need like a organ transplant. It's not available in the United States, but it is available in your home country. And they will not hold it against you. I know it because I had a client like that. It was crazy situation. So God forbid a relative got very sick, and this is your last chance ever to see that person, to say goodbye to them. Most likely they will understand. Sometimes they will even understand if you have to resolve personally some financial issue that's like very important to you because property rights are taken very seriously in the United States. Imagine you have something of a value that you're going to lose, and that's like all your life savings. You wanted to retire with that money and things like that. So they may kind of understand, even though this is like uh, not such a strong case as related to the health conditions. Sometimes there are other unique situations. But if you say that I just wanted to see my childhood friend, and as soon as I got green card based on something else, I decided to go back to the country of claim persecution. They would not understand that. And they may accuse you of asylum fraud. And if that happens, what you're going to do, you're going to lose everything. So just keep that in mind. Once you become a US citizen, and as a US citizen you travel to your home country, please, because what matters here, what should matter, sometimes it doesn't, but what should matter is the passport of the country you use when you're crossing the border. There are certain countries in the world, they don't really care that you receive the passport of a different country. They will still consider you to be a citizen of that country no matter what. So just keep that in mind, of course. But generally speaking, I would avoid travel. All right. All right. Let me see if we have more questions. All right. Can give me a problem with a green card traveling. Hi, Enver. Enver, where have you been for the past months? All we hear about would be the news about green card holders who are trying to come back to the United States being arrested at the border. Now, this is not the first time it's happening. You need to know that. With previous administration, it was happening as well. But the difference is it was not reported by NBC, ABC, CBS, and everybody else. So that's a huge difference. So right now, every single case is being widely reported. And I've noticed also there is a pattern. At first, they don't really explain why it happened, and people get absolutely terrified because they do not know. They think it's random thing, and pretty much anybody and everybody can be detained. But then, with time, we learn more details. To date, usually there is a good explanation as to why a green card holder is being detained. I do not know about all the cases, but the big cases that were flashed in the media, usually it's a past criminal conviction, Even if in the past it was not a problem when the person was traveling in and out, now immigration picked up on that and it's a problem. So if you have criminal record, do not travel. Or the person stayed out of the United States for far too long, more than 6 months. All right? Again, just get yourself a re-entry permit and you will avoid this issue. All right? That's usually those two big issues. All right? All right. Hi Malik, I 212H waiver approved. This still will give me problems coming back if I traveled abroad. Why don't you consult with an immigration attorney? Look at your conviction, look what happened. For immigration purposes, the waiver should have erased the issues. I know because I have clients like that. They never faced any issues. Now, take your approval for the waiver with you, all right? Look at the timeline. You have to show them. You even, if you want to be very diligent, have a copy of that waiver, just the form with you, showing that you specifically asked for the waiver because of the conviction, all right? So just be as thorough as possible. Of course, it's better not to travel right now. I just say, to avoid any issues. Why would you want to subject yourself to that? Can citizen kid under 18 travel with parents to back home country, parents in asylum pending? Thanks. No. If you are saying that it's safe for your family member to return back to the country that you're claiming persecution from, the government may think that you are lying about your credible fear and they will find you not credible. That's it. That's just the truth. So let's not travel there, not any family member travel there. You don't need that. Hi, God's own. My girls are in Jamaica and I'm in the United States. We just got approved. What's the next step? Marriage to citizen, I guess, right? Well, the next step, they got just approved, I assume, I-130 petition. Then the next step would be to go through NVC processing. And after that, wait for that interview. Okay. Sai Subaru G4 renewal of my work permit by VAWA case. The first work permit was by marriage. How long to get a green card? It's not a renewal. If you file the new Form I-360, then it's going to be a new work permit, I think, right? Unless you maintain the same I-45 and you request that the I-45 be specifically transferred under I-360. But usually it's very difficult to do that unless you appeared for the interview and the officer helped you out. All right. But if you had to refile the case, then it's usually going to be an initial work permit, not the renewal. All right. Because it's on the new I-45. All right. Well, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you need to play something back from this video on YouTube and Facebook, it's available. It's not going to be available on TikTok because live video is not posted unless you post it on TikTok. It disappears. But it will be available on YouTube and Facebook. And of course, guys, please join my social media family. Don't forget to follow, like, share, and everything else so we can meet again. I hold these live sessions on Tuesdays and Fridays if everything is well. And sometimes if I'm very busy or I don't feel well, I will hold it the next day. But thank you guys very much. I hope you enjoyed this stream and I hope to see you soon.